welcome to On the Air with FDT-TV. My name is Ian.
I'm Mike.
And we are both very, very disappointed in the England result last night, as most of the nation is. But there were a couple of things that we were very passionate about to start off with. One of them is you subscribing to our YouTube channel. Go over to YouTube, type in FDT-TV and look for the Gold Cup. Press subscribe and you'll get much more of us in the upcoming Premier League season. Number 2 is international football for some reason. It's never happened before, but we're very passionate about that now, even though it didn't go away. Number 3 is the disdain for idiots, I think is the best way to put it, and we'll get onto that a little bit later in the podcast. But first, Mike, how did you, obviously I know you're feeling a little bit meh today with it, but what was your initial reaction as soon as Saka missed the vital penalty?
Sadness for not only myself, for the country, for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a tremendous amount of pressure that was placed on someone so young, but at the same time, I know that's something that's been banded around a lot today. However, had he scored the penalty, it would have been a different story. There would have been a lot of praise. But I'm not trying to come across as negative. I think there's a lot of pressure put on someone so young,
mm-hmm.
and I know it was, or we've heard it was the manager's decision to go with the penalties that have been taken. But I did feel sad for him. I did feel sad for myself. It was a very, very, I suppose it was a more traumatic time for him especially. Sorry, excuse me. Back in the room. Yeah, it was a weird one, mate. Like I mentioned just before we come on, I've never really found myself being too passionate about watching England play football, because let's be honest, since 1966 there have been some highs, there have been some lows. We haven't been to a major final, and since 1966 we made it to the final. There was a lot of pressure on the boys in order to deliver across the nation, but I would say that pressure was a factor to come into the result. However, I'm going to put it down to the fact that at the end of the day, Italy were deserved winners of the competition. It's a team that you touted at the start of the competition. So well done to you.
Got that right.
You did. Very well done. We did a lot better than I anticipated. Yeah. I had us going out in the round of 16. Obviously, we exceeded those expectations, and I think that's one of the reasons, why I did become so passionate about it. And it's not something I have seen in my lifetime so far, and I doubt it's going to be something that I see for possibly another 25 years. But we made it to a final. We started off the final really, really strongly, going 1-0 up in 3 minutes, or just under 3 minutes. And from the whole of the first half, we seemed to be dominating the game. There were some good passes around. There was a couple of chances, I think, that were spurred due to people holding on to the ball too much.
Mm-hmm.
We could have seen possibly 1 or 2 more goals coming from positions like the first one did. However, we didn't really capitalise on the domination in the first half. In the second half, we just didn't really turn up. Yep. I think players' legs were becoming leggy. Sorry for the double use of the word there, but I think that we've put in a lot over this tournament. We had a very congested fixture season last year, or this year, due to the pandemic, and I think it just got the better of us.
Mm.
And I think one of the biggest question marks that we have to ask is, why weren't substitutions utilised before going into extra time? Because the difference I think we saw when Saka come on, Jordan Henderson didn't really come into the game. I think he was a bit of a wasted substitution. However, Saka, I think, has been brilliant all tournament. And I think had he not got fouled by Chiellini,
yep.
it could have been a different story, because I think he was that it was a yellow card. It wasn't a scoring opportunity, but there has to be some ramification for that, because I think it was a disgusting challenge, and how you can live with yourself winning dirty.
It was.
I
Well, you say that we see Manchester City. They're the masters of it. I was saying to my other half when it kicked off, I said they've come for war. And she went, "What do you mean?" I said, "Just by the way they've sung their national anthem, they ain't come here to lose. They've not come here just to play. They've come here to win." Um, and I think, I mean, we mentioned it briefly last week that playing at home could prove a disadvantage for the amount of pressure. And I think that later on in the game, you could sense the atmosphere was starting to turn. I mean, three minutes in when Luke Shaw, yeah, it was Luke Shaw, wasn't it? Scored.
It was.
Obviously the place was bouncing. Um, I mean, after that was a fantastic opening. Just the overload of the wide area, which is what that formation is really good at doing. We didn't see it again. I mean, that first one, Trippier was down there, Walker was down there, Shaw was down there, Sterling. Everyone, there were so many players in the box, and that's where the space opened up. I think you're right, but I think it's the same mistakes. This is a problem with England. No, that's a lie. This is the same mistakes by Sarah Gouthgate. My brain is not working. By Gareth Southgate, we saw it against Iceland, didn't we? When we went out, he refused to make substitutions until late on. He's done it all through the tournament, refusing to make substitutions to 80 minutes, 75 minutes, 80 minutes. And that second half, we come out rested on our laurels, and we're playing for a draw. You know, you can't. If we'd gone and got another goal, would have changed the game completely. So Chiellini, however you pronounce it, he's been around the block. He's been there, done it, won it. I don't think you can say that if it was the other way around and Harry Maguire had chokeslammed Chiesa into the floor, we'd all be praising him and saying, "Make a statue." He's part of the game. No one likes to see it unless it's for your side, and it's a little bit cheeky. But I mean, if I'm honest, I think we're lucky that Chiesa went off, because he was running that game. He was absolutely phenomenal, and there was a couple of Italian players that were doing it. But you're right. Saka come on, started to change the game. Grealish come on in extra time, and that again we ramped it up a gear. Henderson, I think, settled the bank now. He shouldn't be in the team. He didn't do anything. Statistically, Declan Rice was one of the better players in that final. The amount of tackles and passes and dribbles. Henderson come on and did nothing. If anything, he made Italy. He gave them more space by being out of position. Because he went further forward, and Mason Mount sat back as a defensive midfielder, which in my head I can't get my head round. Then we get to penalties, and our record with penalties isn't fantastic, is it? I mean,
No.
We've had some good penalty shootouts recently, but when you look at the size of Donnarumma, he was an absolute monster, and it's like, oh no, here we go, because Pickford only come up to his shoulder. And I was like, I don't fancy Pickford in a shootout, but actually, I think he was phenomenal. I don't think he asked for more. He saved 2, didn't he? And that he couldn't do any more than that. You see Jack Grealish get pointed to by Southgate when they're taking names to do penalties, and he nods, and then he never steps up. He brought on Sancho and Rashford, didn't he, just before? You think 2 players who could have come on and made a difference. Sancho's blistering pace for 30 minutes. Just get him on, let him run at him. And I think that's why Saka was so effective, just because he was so quick. Kane was rubbish, so he might as well have come off for Rashford. Might not have changed anything, but actually it's a change of personnel, change of how players work. Who knows what would have happened? But then the one substitute I did think made sense is he took Henderson off the penalties, which I was praising at the time, because last time Henderson took a penalty for England, he did not care when he missed it. So I don't know if that was in the back of Southgate's mind, but in some of the players that you've taken off, you've taken Rice off, who's West Ham's penalty taker when the Mark Noble was not on the pitch. Grealish never got to take one. Aston Villa captain. You know what I mean? Stones we've seen taken before in the past. Carl Walker's a senior member of the squad. You mean we brought on
Raheem Sterling.
Raheem Sterling has been on fire. Sancho, I've never seen take a penalty. He's not the penalty taker for Borussia Dortmund, so why is he taking one? I don't know. Rashford has been taking penalty lessons off of Pogba with that silly little steps. If he'd run up to it, walloped it, and it hit the post, I would have gone fair enough. He's tried to absolutely blast that, but it was a little step. He's a little bit of a lottery. Obviously, I know I'm making jests and saying how bad the penalties were, but I don't condone the scenes that we saw afterwards with the monkey signs and the racism and that. There's no need for that. These people we're singing their praises. They've been our heroes for the last 6 weeks. Rashford's raised countless amount of money for children who are in dire straits and can't afford hot meals. Do you know what I mean? I think the moment we should have taken our defeat gracefully. I think, but we've been anything but.
I think that's one of the difficulties with the time. I know, obviously, you want to kind of what's the word? You want to try and maximize the audience so it's accessible for as many people as possible that want to watch this competition. Now, effectively, you also had the I think it was the Copa America as well. In fact, I think that was on the Saturday night. However, when you've got let's be honest, we're a pain in the ass when we go away on holiday. I don't mean specifically you and me. I mean the English people as a general.
Yeah.
We like to get a little bit boozy, and we cause a bit of a nuisance when we go away abroad. Now, when you have a kick-off time as late as it was, it's gonna cause issues when you think about the average what's the word? I'm gonna have to choose my word. The average football hooligan, I'm gonna say, gets fueled by consumption of alcohol and possibly other substances. I have seen other videos on social media of people making no way to hide taking cocaine, and people around this particular person praising him like he's some sort of Jesus or something because he did a line of cocaine in the middle of London or whatever on top of some statue. I don't know. But when you give that amount of people the space to be able to do it, the length of time that they're able to do it, because let's be honest, I can guarantee you possibly the majority of those people started drinking when they possibly got up. If not
10 o'clock, half 10, when the pubs were already full. So,
yep. And it was going to be a recipe for disaster. That coupled with the narrow-mindedness of I would like to say a small majority, but I suppose it is a small majority in that they're so narrow-minded that they think it's acceptable to be able to hide behind platforms such as social media to go out and abuse these people. Personally, I would love to give them all a fucking good kicking. I think it's absolutely disgusting. There's some Arsenal people that I follow were showing Arsenal Twitter pages with some of the comments that they've said about one of our own players, and he's named and shamed him. He's quite a well-respected person on Twitter in terms of the Arsenal following.
Yeah.
And some of these accounts have been deleted, but it's all very well and good you deleting an account. That person can then start off it's quite easily to start up a new page and again be able to throw abuse out to these people.
Well, I mean, that brings up the whole debate, doesn't it? That, again, of should you have to identify yourself with a bill, a driving license, whatever, to create a social media account?
I suppose it becomes difficult for younger people. So from people from the ages of 16 plus, they do have ways and means of being able to get some form of identification. However, if you've got some people that are younger that want to use the social platforms, it does make it very difficult.
I want to say that Facebook and Twitter have a if you read their terms and conditions, they do have an age limit on there. I want to say it's 14. It might be older than that. It certainly used to be 14. I mean, Facebook when it originally started was you had to be in college. You had to have finished secondary education out over here. For Americans, I don't know what that equivalent is, but it's obviously things change. But I think you're right. I think as a individuals, you can have a reasonable conversation with probably most of the population, but as a collective, we're all fucking idiots, really. You raised a good point just before. Obviously, we started this. There's been talks about hosting World Cups and things like that. And not to steal your thunder, but I do think you were correct in saying that the behaviour shown on the streets, in the stadiums, like the charging of Wembley to get in without tickets, just a general hooliganism. That I think England hosting the Euros again or the World Cup or any major sporting event is going to go out the window very quickly. And it's frustrating because we've been locked up for so long. So some of that is pent up energy that's not been able to be used. But we should have channeled it into something
more productive.
Productive, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. So I do have a question then. If you were Gareth Southgate, who would you have picked to take the penalties from the players that were on the pitch? You got to go with the players that were on the pitch.
Okay, so Harry Kane for starters.
Yeah,
for definite. Second, who was the second one? That was Maguire, wasn't it? What a penalty that was.
Yep.
To be honest, I don't really know his penalty form. But if he takes penalties like he does, then hands down, if he's been replicating that in training, then I understand why, because that was an absolute belter of a penalty.
Yep.
Grealish.
Yep.
Definitely. I'm trying to think who else. See, for me, I think Marcus Rashford was possibly one of the ones that had high praises for his penalties because he takes penalties from Manchester United.
He's missed a hell of a lot recently, though, hasn't he?
Oh, okay. That's my lack of knowledge.
That's the thing that's been going on for Manchester United fans. They seem to chop and change between Pogba and Rashford, and neither of them are particularly high ratioed of scoring. They go on a little run of 2 or 3, and then they'll miss 5 or 6, and then it will change to the other person. I didn't like. I said it, but I didn't like it. Sterling for me would be taking one. I agree with all the other ones, and then possibly. Do you know what? I would have possibly even gone for Calvin Phillips, something like that. I mean, at the 3 that missed, Saka's was the best penalty. He hit it hard, it got saved. It's unfortunate that happens, but you think, what have we got to lose? You don't tell them go and hit it hard and low. That's all you can do. Don't do little steps. Run and hit it as hard and low as you can.
And this, I'm sorry to interject there, but I don't understand the mentality of trying to play these, this cheeky mindset of trying to sucker the goalkeeper. As you mentioned, this guy was like 15'11", so basically filled up the whole goal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you've seen those penalty videos where you get the robotic keeper that basically just lies flat.
That's what he does.
That's effectively what it was like. But I don't understand, as you just said, the stuttering, trying to be cheeky, place it. Everyone needs, I think, personally, the David Luiz 1,500 meter run up and absolutely just twat the ball. Because I'm not being funny. As long as you hit it true, unless you obviously hit it straight at the keeper. But I think statistically, I think you're more likely to score if you aim it at the keeper.
Yeah,
because
generally they guess what way they're going to go.
yeah. So I think that is a mentality that possibly we should take into it. And I think we heard Alan Shearer say, if you were watching the BBC one, that yes, you will practice your penalties, but if you you have to know which way you're going to go and you stick to it. If you start changing your mind in run-ups and stuff, and I think that's exactly what happened with Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho when they were running up to take their penalties. Because I think as much as the stammer in the run-up is to deceive the goalkeeper, I think that shows in your mind that you have some sort of element of doubt.
Yes.
In what way you're going to be going.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of second guessing yourself. Whereas if you're confident, you go for a run up and you smash it, like Harry Maguire did.
Yep.
You're going to score.
Yep. And as we saw with Kasper Schmeichel, the balls for penalties are hard to keep hold of. It was wet. So okay, the keeper might get a hand to it, but is it going to be strong enough? Is it still going to slip in? From having played in goal myself and been in penalty shootouts, the worst thing you can have is hard and low, because they sting, especially when it's wet. They sting, and you might get one of them in a game, and you've got a couple of minutes to sort of compose yourself and get back into that still hurts. In a penalty shootout, you've got all of a minute and a half, and then you've got to save another one, which is going to sting, and eventually you don't want to grab it because you know it's going to hurt.
Yes, I do feel sorry for the guys. I really do, because I mean, certainly for Marcus Rashford, we're talking inches.
Yes,
aren't we? It is purely a case of inches. I don't think he hit it as well as he could have. It seemed to more going off of his heel as opposed to kind of like the proper side of the foot. So
if it had rebounded off the post and gone in, he would have been a national hero today. It's just it went a couple of mil the wrong way, and today he's the villain. The FA have come out and said they're looking at offering Gareth Southgate an extension till after the 2024 Euros. Yep. At this point, would you give him that, or would you see what happens in the World Cup next year? Because I have a theory, but I'll let you answer first.
Personally, I would give him that time. We have seen improvement, and I think this is one of the things that people need to realise. As I think I heard earlier that we've had a fourth, a third, a second, and a runner-up place under Sarah. I don't know what it is. Sarah Gouthgate. Obviously, we had the Nations League.
Yep.
Which we did okay in. We finished third, or we got to the semi-finals in the World Cup.
Yep.
We were beaten at the last minute, which was very unfortunate. And obviously now we've made it to the final. I think the World Cup's going to be a different story altogether in terms of the amount of competition that we're going to be coming up against. Again, we've got another season coming up in between. Hopefully the amount of fixtures that we will have between now and then will be a lot less, because we're able to space it out. We haven't got a cram in a hole.
Yes.
But I would personally give him the World Cup and see how we get on in that. I'm not saying that we're going to win the World Cup, but
if it's a solid performance,
after the last two tournaments where we haven't really had a run in terms of being able to get past the group of 16 or into the quarterfinals, we're making semi-finals now. We're making finals. I would say the level of expectation needs to go up, that we need to get to at least the semi-finals in the next competition. And depending on how we do, obviously it's going to be very much judged on his team selection beforehand anyway.
Yes.
But if we keep the same-ish group of players together, they've now got two 1 or 2 tournaments under their belt,
Yep.
and we could see them go on and potentially win it. There's no reason why we couldn't win it.
Oh no, we've got bar a few players, a very young squad.
Yep.
Obviously, I think it's unlikely we're going to see Henderson in the next one. Same with Kyle Walker and Trippier. But then you look at players that were missing. Trent Alexander-Arnold, could he have made a difference? Possibly in that Italy game. Wan-Bissaka. I don't know why he's not getting a look in at England, but he should be. But say Foden's still really young. Rice, Mount, Phillips are all the right side of 25. Luke Shaw is what, probably more one of the senior players now, but again he's probably only 26, 27, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
The one, do you know what the I said it last night. Sorry, I'm jumping back a little bit. Harry Kane. The next World Cup is in Qatar. Not guitar, Qatar. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's going to be hot. I know they're playing in the evenings, but it's going to be hot. He looked like the most unfit footballer in the whole tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Last night, he looked like he'd been run ragged. Chiellini is 36 years old and run rings round him. I personally think the best thing that could happen to him is to be dropped from the England squad. And this might sound counterproductive because yes, he did score a penalty. Yes, he did score against Denmark. But actually, he knows that he's going to be the first name on the team sheet because he's captain of the country. Where I think there are a lot of quality, hungry strikers at the moment. I mean, before it was really between, do we play Rashford, who was very young, Vardy, or Harry Kane? That was your options before. You think we've now got Calvert-Lewin, who had the season of his life last year. Ollie Watkins, who's hungry, wants to chase the ball. You've got Tammy Abraham, who on his day is fantastic. I mean, there are a lot more options of quality strikers, as well as, say, you still got your Rashfords. I think if you was to ring Jamie Vardy and say, look, mate, we got it wrong before, we're going to start you, he would come out of retirement. Still got it, still chases the ball. He was the only player who wasn't running again. He was meandering about, and yes, I understand that they were doubling up on him, but then he needs to be in the box, so then that makes room for people to run in behind. If he's standing on the halfway line, the defenders don't care. They haven't got to mark him because he ain't a threat from there, is he? And I think he should be dropped.
For me, his performances, I know we're kind of singing his praises. Certainly in the the quarterfinals? Yeah, it was the quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think he scored 2 goals in that particular game.
Yep.
But I think they were by more. In fact, no, I can't say that. I was going to say it's more luck than judgment, but he's got to be in the right place at the right time, and unfortunately, that was one of the things that's been missing a lot this tournament. And I think when you look at past performances as well throughout previous tournaments, I think that's one of the areas that we have struggled with since possibly the late 90s World Cup 98 2000 is one of the key areas that we have lacked in, is that when we don't have a striker that's performing, we suffer.
Yeah.
Raheem Sterling, I think, is one of the exceptions to the rule. I know he's not an out-and-out striker, and possibly was, like I was trying to explain on last week's podcast, is that maybe you do have the Harry Kane holding or playing a false number 9, and then you have the wingers kind of pressing into the box or whatever, which is something that we have seen this tournament. But for me, certainly, I'd say possibly three or 4 games that we've played in this tournament, Harry Kane has been non-existent.
Yeah.
And it's very disappointing to see it. Now, again, obviously we raised this point possibly throughout this whole tournament. Maybe that's the instructions he's been given. But when you've got someone that is the Golden Boot winner in the Premier League on more than one occasion. Certainly last year, with the number of assists got also, you need to be utilising him. And you made the point, I think group chat had against Denmark, when you've got the tallest or some of the tallest defenders.
Yep.
And it's at that point we decided that we want to stick crosses into the box.
Yeah.
It wasn't really getting us very far, but at least we were doing it. And coming into this game, again, I know they're very experienced, or they've got a very experienced team, or certainly members of the Italian team are very experienced and could possibly write the school on how to defend, on how to utilise the midfield. But the mentality, I think, in this tournament, although we made it to the final, I think the mentality was wrong. I think we'd gone in there too defensive, trying to keep the clean sheets, which we did very well. I think we conceded 2 goals in the entire tournament.
Yep.
But at the sacrifice of scoring goals. And I think that was Arsenal's problem last year. Is one of the issues that we had, excuse me, was that we were conceding far too many goals.
Yep.
So we tightened up the defence better than we have seen in previous seasons, but that came at a sacrifice of not scoring as many goals. And I think it's exactly the same on this occasion. Yeah. Sorry, ran over.
No. I think you're right. I think you're right. We've got a very young, hungry squad of attacking-minded players, and we didn't attack. And it's all well and good not conceding goals. If you're not scoring goals, you're never going to win. But there is something, and I'm going to steal it this week, if you don't mind, and you can have it back next week. So if you've got headphones on, this is something for you. It's bloody Varry bastard. Var. Not once have we seen or heard me and Mike moan about VAR in this tournament, which I think goes or compounds the opinion and the fact that we have been right all season in the fact that the English FA are a load of wanky shit when it comes to using VAR, because the VAR checks in this, the longest one that I saw in the whole tournament was 2.5 minutes, which is a hell of a lot quicker than any decisions ever come back. And they were all consistent. And they only I don't think they overturned anything, as far as I'm aware. I may be wrong on that. It was very few and far between, but they only changed clear and obvious errors, which is what the FA have been saying they want to do. So if we can get it right on the international stage, tournament after tournament, and all the other countries seem to get it right, if next year it is wrong, then, or at least as controversial as it has been, I think heads have got to roll somewhere in the FA.
Yeah.
Because I can't name one in any game that was a controversial decision. And in the Premier League, we were in one, possibly two a game. Not a week, a game that were controversial. So how's it that different? It's exactly the same system that's being used in exactly the same stadiums in some respects.
Because they have people that know how to use it, and probably a higher standard of officials than what we have in this country. I would say, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I do mean that disrespectfully, because I think the level of officiating across the entire tour on the whole has been fantastic.
Yep.
There have been decisions, as you mentioned, where it has gone to VAR. The checks were complete in a fairly timely manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there was a lot to overturn, because I think the officials have got it pretty spot on to start off with.
Yep.
I'm not saying that there hasn't been any occasions, but just to kind of echo exactly what you've just said, when you compare the use of VAR, I think in the Women's World Cup a couple of years ago, comparing that to the use of it, or of its use in the Premier League, is chalk and cheese, night and day. We don't really seem to have a clue, and it's almost embarrassing that we do get it so wrong when we can see the system working so well in other countries, in other tournaments. But we're too fucking stubborn just to take any help on possibly speeding up the decision. But I think when you've got some of the officials that we have within the referee governing body that were crap referees in their time, and now they're in charge of the referees association or whatever the fuck it's called. All trying to kind of rub each other's backs so they don't look stupid. And the fact that you can't even question, or managers can't even question the decisions or can't have an opinion on it, becomes extremely frustrating, as we have seen over this or last season and the season before that. It's something that we'd mentioned on a couple of occasions, that there needs to be some sort of either repercussions for incorrect decisions where they come out and go, "Whoops, sorry, we got it wrong on this occasion." But there doesn't seem to be any. Some of the decisions that they give for some overturning decisions or giving the decisions, I think are extremely wishy-washy corporate bullshit. Something that you would expect from your employer to come out with as to why they've made a decision. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of level of crap that is fed into.
It's the corporate wording of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a higher brow, we're better than you, we know better.
Yep.
Rather than saying it was overturned. It was overturned. We cannot change the fact it was overturned. However, it was a wrong decision. We are putting in this and this X, Y, Z in place to ensure that it doesn't happen again, or it happens as little as possible. And I think people would be much more patient with it, much more understanding, because it shouldn't be down to human error, because it's a mechanical thing, really, isn't it? But people would be more understanding with it. The fact they've gone, no, we made, like, according to the FA, there are no wrong decisions in VAR, which is just utter nonsense. But I'm hoping, and I really am, because I'm trying to be positive about it, and the new upcoming season, which I'm a little bit worried about, that VAR is not going to be something that I'm going to have to go on about and moan about and upset my week every week. So I'm being positive that they will have learned and shadowed possibly the officials that were making the decisions.
Fingers crossed.
Might be too much.
I doubt it.
Might be too much to ask for. But with that being said, obviously disappointment for Arsenal last season, with just really the whole season, followed by disappointment for England. Are you looking for a positive in Arsenal next year?
Yes, I am. Our pre-season kicks off tomorrow or today, or whenever you're listening to it, kicking off on Tuesday. We have travelled up to Scotland for a pre-season friendly with Hibs and Rangers, followed by Inter Milan, and then we've got with Spurs and Chelsea coming into the new season. But I'm very much looking forward to it. Something that we will come on to later, the whole transfer saga. We have made a signing, which is good. I'm looking forward to seeing him. I've got to be honest, I don't really know much about this particular player. I know he has a good pedigree about him.
Yep.
Again, it's all hearsay for me at the moment. I'm looking forward to actually seeing him on the pitch. Hopefully, the majority of the players have been well rested. I know they've come back into training over the last week, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Not having European football this season, I think, is possibly a blessing in disguise. We can focus on the Premier League, look to climb higher in the higher positions in the trophy in the tournament, in the league. Sorry, I don't know why that was so difficult. And then possibly get a decent cup run and winning a domestic trophy this year.
Yeah. The signing that you've made is Nuno Tavares, isn't it, from Benfica?
Yep.
Little right back. Bags of pace from what I know of him. I've seen bits and pieces over past few years. I do think that means the end of Hector Bellerin for Arsenal, which in some senses I think Nuno Tavares, although he's a very young player, he's actually an upgrade defensively and attacking wise from Bellerin. So astounding bit of business. Thing with Benfica, right? You might see a few more players coming into the Premier League this year, because the chairman and his son and the owner of Benfica have all been arrested for money laundering and fraud. So they are now currently under investigation, and I think they're going to owe the government a lot of money. So I can see lots of player sales. They've got some really good youngsters and some really good players, but I can see it possibly an influx to cover those costs.
Quite possibly, and obviously the transfer window, the transfer saga will rattle on for as long as it does. There's some of the names that I'd heard about in the earlier on, since the end of the season, are starting to creep up again, with the likes of Ben White possibly coming, a couple of other names. I'm interested to see what happens over the coming, but I think it needs to be a good season because we have no excuses. We only really have the domestic league or the domestic trophies to concentrate on. So,
I mean,
yes,
I've seen two names linked: James Maddison being one, and Damsgaard, the little Danish fellow who scored the blinder of a free kick against us. Don't really know too much about him, if I'm honest. I've heard the name before, but never really paid too much attention. If you could only have one, who would you have?
I would say what out of those two?
Out of those two, yeah. If you link with both, they went because they both play in a similar sort of position. Damsgaard's obviously a bit younger than Maddison, but if you could only have one.
This is purely on a basis that I don't really know much about the other player. Would be James Maddison. He's tried and tested in the Premier League. I think he was in the title-winning side.
I think no. I think he played for Norwich. I think he signed the season after.
Oh, okay.
I want to say I might. You might be right, but
yeah, he's astounding on set pieces. Yep. Yeah, for me, James Maddison would be, but I understand there's quite a hefty price tag.
Yeah, I mean, if
on him, so.
He had a bit of a torrid time of injuries last year, didn't he? But so if he stays injury free, phenomenal little playmaker, and would fit the Arsenal aesthetic, wouldn't he? Of nice passing, quick passing, and ability to score and quick movement. So
yeah,
it's like Jack Wilshere on steroids. Now,
hopefully his ankles hold up better.
Now, West Ham, we're in the Europa League. I don't know when that quite starts. We're in the group stage of it, so I'm a little bit excited for that. A little bit dreading it as well because it's more games and we've got a very small squad. We've signed a couple of youngsters, one from Celtic, one from somewhere else, one from Reading. None really I've heard of, and I can't imagine we're going to see him straight in the first team because that doesn't really happen anymore, does it? But I've read today that Tammy Abraham, allegedly, he's going to be coming to West Ham.
Okay.
Apparently, he's been on David Moyes' radar for a while, and it was between us and Aston Villa, but allegedly we've taken the lead in. I don't know how they can say that. Number of different sources I've seen saying that West Ham are now in the lead to do it. I imagine that's because they know he's going to be the out-and-out striker for West Ham. If he comes, he would be the first name on the team sheet in terms of attacking. Where at Aston Villa, he's got to compete. They've got a few striking options up there already, so it's not guaranteed game time. That's what I can see as the most alluring part of West Ham move at this point. And the other one, Jesse Lingard, with Sancho imminently about to join Manchester United, from what we can tell. He's sort of been told that, yes, he'll be registered, but his game time is going to be fleeting, a bit like it was before. Obviously, with the amount of attacking options that he's got. So again, if we can sign Lingard Tammy Abraham and defender. Okay, yes, we do need more coverage in more areas. A left back, a right back to cover Suf out, maybe another central midfielder. I don't think that's would be um, a bad transfer window. If I'm honest, we do need a covering goalkeeper. I like Trott, but look, watching him in the game against Dundee, he looked a little bit flaky. You can't really tell from pre-season, can you? Not it was a big mix of teams, but yeah, I think if we can get those two players and a decent defender, we're on a good path.
Do you think that it would be an option, obviously depending on whether, in terms of Jesse Lingard, would you think that he would what's the word? Be happy with a possible loan with an option to buy, or would you see West Ham going in to buy him?
If I'm honest with you, I imagine it would have to be some sort of permanent deal, and the reason I say that is Jesse Lingard himself said that he almost quit football last year until he came to us. Manchester United extended his contract by a year. He had a year's contract extension, which takes him up to the end of next season. So if they don't sell him now and he doesn't renew his contract, he will then leave for free. So that's why I think they want to try and get some sort of monetary value out of him. So I think a permanent transfer is a must. I imagine 15 million quid in today's market for a player at the end of their contract, year left. It's not too terrible, especially if you can get a little bit of quality. The other thing that's pressing, and I forgot to mention this, Declan Rice allegedly turned down 2 new contracts in West Ham, which were shit offers. He has allegedly, because I've not heard it from him, I've not seen it from him. This is sources saying that his people are saying this stuff. Without hearing it firsthand, you can't take it for granted. Allegedly, he's come out and said he wants to be paid the same as what the top earners are on at West Ham, which is your Yarmolenkos, your Felipe Andersons, which is only about £120,000 a week. Now, I said this to me missus. I said, if we win, if in the morning Sullivan hasn't put a £200,000 a week offer on the table for him for a 5-6 year contract, then it's stupid. We lost, but he arguably was one of the better players in that game. Not saying he was the best player or the player of the tournament, but in yesterday's game for us, he was one of the better players. If they're not offering like £120,000 a week for a player of his quality who's prepared to stay, then there's not really much hope. I don't hold out much hope for the future, because actually we should be going, yes, he's one of the best defensive midfielders in the Premier League. There are a few names like that, and that means just by being that, he's one of the best defensive midfielders on the planet. Build your team around him. He's happy to stay. He's young. It's not like he's 35. He's like 21 years old. Build your team around him. What are you playing at? I understand there's finances in football that they have to be adhered to, but when we're signing Haller on big money and Anderson on big money, who both look like they're back out the squad, Yarmolenko's been injury stricken. Why can't we offer one of the best players that we've seen in years the same money? I can't get my head around it.
I completely agree. I think he's been outstanding all tournament, in complete honesty. I think you put it very well yesterday. It's possibly one of the him and Calvin Phillips has been one of the best midfielder partnerships that we've seen in England for a long time. I'm not saying that it's overall the best midfielder partnership, because we have seen some cracking midfielders over the course of certainly our time watching.
Yes.
But I would definitely say they're definitely up there. And to be honest, I suppose in a way it's comparing apples and oranges, because when you look at teams of the 90s or late 90s and look at the style of football that was played then to compared to what it is now,
Yeah.
you can't really draw that comparison.
Oh,
But
I think
certainly,
yeah, I think you're right. I think if you was to compare stat for stat and actually compare two players, if you was to put Gerrard and Lampard versus Phillips and Rice on paper, every day of the week you're choosing Gerrard and Lampard just in terms of being a world class footballer. But if you put them in a game, I reckon Rice and Phillips absolutely dick all over them.
yeah.
Rice sitting back covering, quite happy to do that, can go forward, and just the sheer tenacity of Calvin Phillips, just unbelievable. If I'm honest, I think Leeds are going to struggle to keep hold of him this year. I think, I mean,
I'd sign him.
I don't think there's a midfield or a midfield that he doesn't walk into at the minute. Wijnaldum's gone from Liverpool. Actually, the high press, he fits the bill. He can play. You put him in that team, and he's going to thrive. Same with Manchester City, the high press. And that's the one thing that I did say yesterday about Harry Kane. What I said is he deserves to sit and rot at Tottenham and never win anything in his career. But I think before this tournament started, we were talking about £100 million move to Manchester City. That's if Pep Guardiola has watched any of the Euros, or his team have, that move is now out the window because he's unfit and he doesn't press. And actually, that's what he had to go at Aguero for. Is you're unfit,
yep,
and you don't press. And actually, Aguero got fitter and started to press. I can't see Harry Kane changing his game that much to be able to fit in that quickly. I don't think he's going anywhere. And Tottenham fans will be really happy. Tottenham fans will be really happy about that.
Yeah,
for sure. But
yeah, I completely agree with you. I've already ranted on about him, and I think your text yesterday was definitely one of the ones that was kind of the highlight of yesterday.
I can't remember.
Yeah, the one you just said.
Oh, about him deserving to rot. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. And people are going to go, Italy are the first team ever in a European Championship finals to win 2 penalty shootouts. That's a first. But they're also a first to have won anything having trained at Tottenham's training ground. Nothing ever has been won from there. So what does that say about that? That says it's not the training ground, is it? It's the team. And I don't want to point fingers, but
yeah,
maybe they would have won something if they had sacked Jose. Who knows? Parallel universe. Tottenham win that, we won the Euros. Stranger things.
Yep.
Come on, we're getting into it now. We're getting into the Premier League, and this is our forte. Who is winning the Premier League this year? Of your initial.
Chelsea, I think, are going to have a good shout. Obviously, we did see them with Thomas Tuchel come on in leaps and bounds in the short space of time that he was there. Champions League winners.
Yep.
I only went with Chelsea again because of the run of form that they have. And I think this is going to be something. Obviously, it depends on recruitment, who they get in, who they get rid of. But Chelsea are ones for me to watch. Manchester City, again, I think are going to be ones to watch. I'm hoping that we'll be there or thereabouts. I'm not saying that we're going to win it, but I'm hoping minimum top 3. I think for us needs to be our target this year.
If you're in the top 3 at Christmas, you'd be happy, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be even happier come the end of the season. But I think it's going to be between Chelsea and Manchester City. year.
Yeah, I think you spot on with the Chelsea. Looking at the players they're linked with, they're linked with Haaland. Apparently, they're going to test Dortmund's resolve, putting over £100 million bid. We're also linked with trying to bring back Lukaku and allegedly Declan Rice again. It's always up there. He's good friends with a lot of the young Chelsea players, so you wouldn't like to see it.
Watch
But
this space.
I mean, it's one of those things. I wouldn't like to see him go. I wouldn't begrudge him for it. As much as I'd boo him every time he walked on the pitch against us, but no, he's a good lad. He's a good lad. I think if Chelsea can get a few players in, they're up there. Manchester United is my dark horse. They finished second last year. Obviously, I think we'll see a different side of Liverpool with Van Dijk potentially coming back. Will he be the same player? Who knows? Can you? Here's a point. If we had one, can you imagine how much of a hero Pickford would be? He ruined Van Dijk, so made the Premier League much better to watch for everyone.
Yep.
And then saved 2 penalties and won a penalty shootout. Can you imagine? That would have been amazing. But yeah, I think
world-class status.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think you've got to look at Man United. If they sign Sancho and get a couple of other players in, Varane's one they've been heavily linked with. It's on paper they're contenders. It's just whether their patchy form catches up with them. I think this could be the year that Solskjaer goes. And who do you think is going to be the first manager to be sacked? Because there will be one. There always is.
Yep. I think, if I'm being completely honest, it would depend on our start of the season.
Ooh.
If looking at some of the fixtures that we've got, so we have got Brentford, we've got Chelsea, we've got Manchester City, we've got Norwich, and we've got Burnley.
Some banana skins potentially in there.
Yeah, so depending possibly on our first 6 games. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our 6th game is Tottenham Hotspur.
Oh, if you've only got one win and then you lose against them, I see what you're saying.
I'm calling for his head.
That's going to be a long season potentially for you.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, no. I'm hoping with some of the recruitments that we're going to be getting in, if we do end up signing some of these 25 players that we've been linked with again this season. But no, in all seriousness, we've given Mikel Arteta some time. I know there's a bigger picture project in place. Looking at some of the youngsters that have come through over the years, it's looking very promising. However, at the end of the day, football's a results-driven business. We had a bit of a torrid season last season. Granted, the back end of the season was more positive, but if we don't carry that into this season with certain people on goal-scoring form, I think he could potentially be one to go first.
For me, Pep. No question. Really? No questions. Pep. No. I reckon Vieira or the geezer at Wolves. I've not really heard the one at Wolves. I think Wolves are maybe waiting for a bit of a dodgy season, but I think Vieira's got the most difficult challenge. Roy's done reasonably well with them there over the last few years on a very shoestring budget with maybe some players who are getting older, some not the quality that you'd want them to be in the Premier League. A lot of out of contracts. I think he's got the hardest job. Norwich, you sort of come up, expect to be plucky, let's attack, but we're probably going to get relegated. Brentford we're going to do what we do. If we stay up, fantastic. But again, we're looking at relegation, and I don't know who else come up. Who else come up?
It was, I want to say
Watford. It was Watford. And Watford again. See, there's the one, because Watford changed their manager a lot. But again, I think they will stay up. I think they've got enough about them, and they've made some a flurry of signings already, so they're already starting that process of bedding in players, which is always good. But let us know in the comments section below who you think is going to win the title and also the first manager to get relegated, or hit us up on Twitter. Our handles are below or in the description wherever you are consuming the podcast. And unless you've got anything else, Mike,
I'm all good, mate.
until next week, I have been Ian.
I've been Mike.
We have been on the air, and we are FDT-TV, and we will see you next week.
Thanks very much.